welcome back to Christian Theology in Encounter with Other Faiths. This is video number 3, and in this one we're beginning to think about how, from the perspective of Islam, looking back at Christianity, what critiques, what questions, what different insights are brought to bear to help us think about our own faith in new light. Because it's something that we just need to remind ourselves of for a moment, that in this module we're not simply asking about other religions, what's going on in the thinking in other religions. We're also doing something a little bit further than that. We're saying, in the light of that, in the light of what's going on within Islam or within Hinduism, how do we look back at our own religion differently, recognizing that Muslims and Hindus have things to say about Christian faith. Some of them are challenging for us, some of them are affirming, but still they make us think. So that's the process that we're trying to go through together. So I'm just going to highlight 2 or 3 things to start off with in this video about how Muslims raise questions about Christian faith, and then we'll come to discuss these further in the Zoom session, and we'll discuss 1 or 2 others. In particular, we'll do the issues to do with Jesus in more depth when we meet together. I won't touch on them so much in this video. So the first thing for us to sort of appreciate is that from a Muslim perspective, the sort of default, the central way in which other religions are viewed, Christianity amongst them, is that Islam is understood as having corrected the errors that crept into other religions. So Islam was teaching the truth from the beginning of time, in that Islam was the state of things, of how things are meant to be, that all things should live in submission to God's will, and all the line of prophets through Adam and Noah and Abraham and Moses and David and Jesus, they were all saying the same message from a Muslim perspective. They were all preaching the message of Islam, of submission to God's will. But the groups of people who gathered around some of those prophets distorted the message, making it more about particular rituals or more about particular individuals. In the case of Jesus, how Christians made it more about Jesus than about the message. So then when Muhammad comes, he is seeking to correct the errors that crept in through those other religions. So this means, if this is our sort of primary way of appreciating that Islam is challenging Christianity, what it means is that it's obviously a difficult thing from a Muslim perspective to belong to another religion, because you're therefore belonging to a religion that is in some respects in error. Whereas Islam, the religion that follows Muhammad and the Quran, is the religion that is in truth, that is the religion that is fully correct. So to belong to another religion is problematic from a Muslim perspective. But does this mean that all Muslims think that all other religions are a problem? Well, no, it doesn't mean that. There are verses within the Quran that point in different directions. Just as the Bible has subtlety and complexity within it, so the Quran points in different directions as well. So it's worth us just noting some of the ways in which the Quran supports some Muslims viewing things in one way, and the Quran supports some Muslims viewing things in another way. So for instance, in the Quran, there are phrases which in particular support Jews and Christians. From chapter 29, verse 46, our God and your God is one. So dispute not with the people of the book. Jews and Christians are regarded as people of the book. Dispute not with the people of the book. Our God and your God is one. And the Jews say, this is from chapter 2 of the Quran, the Jews say the Christians have nothing to stand upon, and the Christians say the Jews have nothing to stand upon. Yet they both have something to stand upon. They both recite the book. And Allah will judge between them in their quarrel on the day of judgment. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? That from a Muslim perspective, Muslims look at Jews and Christians and see them arguing with each other. And that's their primary way of viewing Jews and Christians, as having an argument, in particular about the status of the covenant and the person of Jesus. And so Muslims look at these 2 communities and say they're arguing with each other, and say that the argument will be resolved on the day of judgment from a Muslim perspective. But even so, it is allowing, this verse in the Quran, it's allowing for Jews and Christians to be part of the same big story as Islam. And then further on in chapter 42 Allah is our Lord and your Lord. On us is the responsibility for our deeds, and on you for your deeds. There is no contention between us and you. Allah will bring us together, and to him is our final goal. That is incredibly striking, isn't it? And that's that for Muslims to have in their sacred text, Allah will bring us together, an image of reconciliation within the will of God. And from chapter 29, we believe in that which was sent down to us and that which was sent down to you. Our God and your God is one. To him we are submitters. And submitters, the word there is Muslims. To him we are Muslims. Those of us who submit to what was sent down to you, and those of us who submit to what was sent down to us. In other words, different revelations, but all confirming the same message of Islam. So there we have in the Quran verses that point towards a sort of Islamic inclusivism, a way of including Jews and Christians within their story on the basis of what is in the Quran. But at the same time, we have verses pointing in a more critical direction. From chapter 3, say, O people of the book, come to what is common between us and you, that we worship none but God, that we associate no partners with him, that we erect not from among ourselves lords other than Allah. So there is a verse which reminds us that Muslims are very clear that they do not associate anything with God that is not God. And they see in Christianity, for instance, a way of associating something that they regard as not God, a human being, with God. And so they are more wary of that. Come to what is common between us. So they're saying there are things that we have in unity with you as Christians, but there are also things where you differ from us. And please come to our way of thinking. They do blaspheme who say Allah is one of three in a Trinity. But we'll notice something interesting about that when we come together in our session. Allah is one of three in a Trinity. It doesn't say Allah is three in a Trinity, but Allah is one of three in a Trinity. But even so, the verse in the Quran is there reminding Muslims that people who talk of the Trinity are blasphemers. So we have verses in the Quran that point in a direction of creating that space for Jews and Christians to be part of the same story as Muslims. But we also have verses pointing in a more critical direction where Muslims have a basis for being wary of Jews and Christians. Just as, I think, in some respects, we have verses in the Bible which help us engage with other religions, and we have verses which point us towards being more wary and critical. But something that many Muslims would point to is from chapter 2 in the Quran, Surah 2, in religion there is no compulsion, reminding Muslims and reminding all of us that God gives freedom for people in their response in religion, so that they should not be compelled to be one thing or another. There's a really interesting and useful set of categories by the scholar Jawad, and she identifies 4 sorts of Muslim approach to other religions. So she says that fundamentalists are those who allow for no room for diversity. Islam is the true religion and other religions are simply false. Then she says there is the grouping which she calls conservatives, and she is suggesting that most Muslims would fit into this category. And it's that they say Islam is the best way, and so they would seek to invite others to join Islam, but that if other people decline that offer to join Islam, that does not mean you write them off, that you dismiss them, but you still seek to work with them on the basis of the pursuit of social harmony under the one God. So Muslims will be people of peace who seek to work with Christians and Jews and others in pursuit of social harmony. Then there's a third category, modernists, those who she says are inclined to sort of revise or select certain strands of the Quranic tradition to focus on issues to do with social justice and liberation and fairness and solidarity to build a oneness in a community, while sort of editing out those parts of the Quran which are more exclusivist. So this is seen as a modernist approach, a sort of approach which is critical of its own religion and selecting the strands which are more about us being all part of one story, and being more wary of those parts of the tradition which allow for exclusivism. And then there is a fourth category within Islam, which she calls traditionalists, particularly from the Sufi wing of Islam, the mystical wing, which allows for a manyness and a oneness together, so that there is a oneness of who God is, but there are many different responses in different religions, so that there is a sort of mystical way of holding together the one and the many. So far we've simply been exploring how Islam as a whole looks back at other religions as a whole, and it has a basis in the Quran for making different sorts of assumptions, different conclusions about whether to embrace other religions or whether to be critical of them. We'll come to think about those things a little bit further, and to pursue some other issues too in relation to the Bible and in relation to the person of Muhammad, because it's one thing that puzzles Muslims in particular, why it is that Christians can't embrace Muhammad. They have embraced Jesus, so why is it that Christians can't embrace Muhammad? A question worth considering, so perhaps ponder it before we meet together. See you soon.